मीनाक्षी वीडियो कॉल पे हूँ। अब तो बाद में हेल्प कर पाऊंगा। मनीषा मेरी आवाज आ रही है, बताना।
दोबारा बोलो।
मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, पर अजीब सी क्यों आ रही है, बच्चे जैसी?
बच्चे जैसी आ रही है?
अब ठीक है, थोड़ा पहले अजीब सी आ रही थी।
अच्छा। अरे वो बहुत साथ बैठे हैं ना, तो एको ना हो।
नहीं, ठीक है।
अभी तो नहीं दिख रहा एको, है ना? बहुत। पार्टिसिपेंट जिम आ गया। हाय जिम। You are on mute right now.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going good. Oh, now I see you properly as well. Calm and carry on.
Hi, Jim.
Oh, carry on. Hello, Manisha. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
So, Jim, how do you pronounce Indian names that well?
What, Manisha?
Yeah.
We actually have someone on our staff whose name is Manisha.
Ah.
Oh, good to know.
So that's why you feel this way. Okay, got it. So let me introduce you to Manisha Jim. So Jim leads the marketing team here at Service
Okay.
Ensem. So she never had the chance to talk to you, and I told you our team is always excited to talk to you guys.
Always.
So one of the reason, Jim, why they're excited. The other thing is that you guys share feedback honestly, and also you refer us to so many people. And the other thing is, like, we have been working with mostly with Southeast Asia, right? We have less US clients as compared. So the kind of way you guys treat us and they treat us, it's a lot of difference. So
Okay.
that's why as well, yeah, everyone gets excited. So how have you been? Yeah.
Doing good. Doing good. We just got finished moving from Texas up to Indiana, so
Yeah.
it was a very long move. So,
So you are happy to move back?
pardon?
You are happy to move back? You told me, right? You used to live there here before.
Yeah, I think so. So far, I mean, I moved into a smaller town.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to live in Indianapolis, where there's probably, I don't know, close to 1 million people, right?
Okay.
When I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
and I grew up. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Indianapolis 500 race.
No, tell me, what's that about?
It's a very famous Formula One race that's
Okay.
here, and it's here at the what they call the Indy 500.
Oh,
And
that I've heard. Indy 500 is something
yeah,
I've
Indy
heard.
500. So I grew up
Yeah.
about 4 blocks from there,
Okay.
my entire life. And so when I went to the service, right, and I spent 20 years in service, traveling the world and stuff, and then
Right.
afterwards we kind of ended up staying more towards the south in the United States.
Okay.
We were like in Arizona and Texas and stuff like this, away from all the cold. And so, I probably only got a couple more years left maybe before I retire and stuff. So I thought, okay, I got to get ready for retirement now. So decided to come back a little closer to my roots and stuff. And
Right.
now I moved into a little town that's only got like 2,000 people in it. So that's sweet.
So you like being there. So I believe that there will be a lot of space in that place. It will be a lot greener then. Is it like that because it's a small town?
Well, it is. It's called Rockville, Indiana, and it's way off to the border of Illinois.
Okay.
And let me show you if I can. We're in the fall season right now. So if you look outside, it's
Oh wow.
Nice.
greenery and stuff. And
Yeah. So and I remember that when you were sitting in the Texas area, even though it was not that green, but you had deers coming near your place. So you always like to live near the forest, is it?
I do. I really do love the wildlife and stuff. And so I've been watching some of the deer come through here, and I've been trying to get out there fast enough to feed them some deer corn and stuff. But they're a little skittish. They're skittish around here so far, and probably rightfully so, because I actually hear people hunting around here.
Ah,
Oh,
So
that's it. So they're
I guess I'm
scared.
a little bit afraid of domesticating them too much, because if they're not afraid of me, they may not be afraid of some of the hunters either. So
Right.
I might just have to enjoy them from a distance and just love
You have to
watching
be
them
very,
live.
very careful, right?
Yeah.
If you do, because what happens if they keep on coming at the same time at your place, hunters can track them down easily, right?
Yeah, and there's a place right next to us. It's it's all camping and lakes and everything like this, but
Okay,
I think there's a place that's like 150 acres that is this
that's
guy owns.
huge.
They also hunt on that acreage. So
Oh,
to be right next to that, I'm a little bit like, okay, well, they're probably not too safe around here.
Yeah, they are
And the
not.
guy I bought the house from, he had deer head on the wall and stuff like this. So I was like,
Oh
all
my
right,
God.
well, so they're gonna have a little
And
friendlier resident here this time.
and you are close to wildlife, so you won't like this, right?
Pardon?
Something like this happening. I'm saying when you're close to wildlife, you don't like something like this happening.
No, not at all. Not at all. I very, very much love watching wildlife and interacting with it and stuff. The squirrels, the raccoons, the deer, and everything else. It's just
Okay.
they're just amazing. To,
They are. Have you been to Africa ever or
no,
plan to? Because
nope.
that would be one of my favorite places to go. So I actually love wildlife as well. So what happens? I keep on pushing these guys to go to places where there is wildlife whenever we have an annual
actually.
trip. So we went to Jim Corbett National Park this time for our annual trip. We did not see the wildlife,
So we
but
didn't see
we tried
nothing.
to.
Yeah.
But we tried to. And there are places. So me and my dad also love it, Jim. And because of my dad, I think it is inherited. So there's a place called Ranthambore where whenever we go, it's wild and we can see the tigers. So there are a lot of tiger population there. So we even know the names of each and every tiger there is. When their
Wow,
babies get birth, we get to know their names as well because we know each and every guide there. So that
that
is
is
something very, very close to me. So every year I definitely go there once.
that sounds amazing.
Yeah. So that's and whenever after that I went to Jakarta once, and there they have this kind of wildlife, kind of like safari, but they drug them, and it was so painful for me to watch that because they were drugged, right? They were not moving around. They were in a safer zone, but mostly drugged.
Sure.
So it's
Yeah,
something that I don't like that anymore. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because wildlife.
Well, I can't
Okay.
do any traveling anymore these days, so
Uh,
I have to
why
keep it.
so? Is your health and all everything okay?
It is. It's I don't know if you've heard of CLL before.
CLO?
CLL.
CLL, okay. What's that?
It's a chronic lymphocytic leukemia, and so I've got
Oh,
that. But
Oh,
it's kind of like
jeez.
if you have to have a cancer, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like the lottery of cancers, if you think about it, because I could die at 100 years old with this and still never be affected
Okay.
by it. But you have to be careful with your immune system over
Mm-hmm.
time, because you don't want things to cause your white blood cells to rise. As it
Okay.
rises, as it continues to rise, it won't come back down. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you get too many of them, and they call them false soldiers, you have the body thinks that you're fighting something because of the white blood cell count, but it's not really, because half of those or most of those are they're not true white blood cells actually fighting a disease. They're
Okay.
fake. And so your body
Mm-hmm.
thinks it's already produced enough white blood cells, but it hasn't. And the next thing you know is you can get undertaken by the disease. So you just have to be
Mm-hmm.
really, really careful. And they say that, there's nothing you can do about it. Later on you can take some pills and that will help to reduce your white blood cell counts and stuff. But then you have
Okay.
to start taking them every single day once you start them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you may never have to, right? It's like my
Let's
cell
hope
count,
for this.
it's like 3-4 times what a normal person's is right now. But they say that's still
Okay.
not dangerous. You have to get up to that 70, 80,000 range before you might have to start on that. And I'm nowhere near that yet. So
So that's good. So and
it's
is
just
it
about being careful with life. That's all.
so is it like increasing the white blood cells or is that been
It
constant for
is.
some time?
It is
Okay.
increasing. So I think they originally diagnosed it back in, I think 2015, 14, 15.
Mm-hmm.
And it's gone from something like 10 to 22,000. And so 12,000, it's raised 12,000 over what, 7 or 8 years. So
Okay.
that's not bad.
So
I'll
that's
probably
not.
be dead before. I'll probably be dead before it's over.
No, I
That's
won't
what I say.
wish
You know,
for that, but I was just saying, like, at least for the next 20, 25 years, if it goes at the
yeah,
same pace, you'll be okay.
yeah. So I try not to travel as much. You know, I try not to go to these big meetings that we have, and I try to stay out of airports and et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
Right? There's a lot of crowds. Like today, this week, we have what we call our fall festival down here, and there's literally tens of thousands of people down the road here. And I
Okay.
just don't go down there because, you know, it's big crowds and you're likely to catch something. And
Right.
yesterday I got my COVID booster and flu shot, and, you
Oh,
know,
got
just keep
it.
on
Okay.
playing life safe, you know.
But you should still do the things that you enjoy, Jim.
I think
It's
so.
yeah, it's good that you moved here because you like to live near the safari, like this kind of jungle area or the wild area, and I think
Yes,
you should keep on doing this because if it is going to take 25 years, I think you should enjoy your life, man.
that's right. I'll enjoy it. Little wood shop out back and I'll be okay.
Okay, Jim. So thank you for sharing this, and I hope it doesn't increase like the
Yeah,
way it's
thank you.
going. It stays that way.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be fine.
Yep, you are a positive person, so I feel that is also one of the things that takes you because you are always a risk taker, Jim. That's what I feel.
Well, you know, even if I'm not, right,
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait for the next adventure, whatever that
Yeah,
is, right?
yeah.
You know, so many people believe in so many different other lives and other, you know, what's going to happen to us and et cetera. And I truly, truly, truly believe that there's going to be another life somewhere
Right.
and somehow. And I think that there's some sort of lesson I'm supposed to be trying to understand and learn while
Yeah.
I'm here on this earth. And I keep on trying to understand how do I turn fear and anger and violence and everything else into just love. That's all I'm trying to do, you know,
Yeah.
Wow.
understand we're all here just trying to make it.
It's good for people like us to understand this because we'll be at your age as well, Jim, someday,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
if we have sorted this all out like you have, it will be fun. Okay, Jim. So Jim, first of all, like thank you for giving us this call. So I have like a lot of questions. I don't know if they can be answered in 1 hour. I'm really sorry.
I don't even
But
know if I can answer them. So
you will
it's
be.
kind of like, I'm certainly not the expert. So I'm hoping I can maybe give you something that helps, but I don't
Yes,
know.
you will definitely for sure. So see, I'll tell you what are the things that are required to start a business there, for example, right? In terms of B2B. So when we figured it out in Southeast Asia, Jim, we talked to people like you, like who are working at some different kind of companies. Some of them were our customers, some of them were not. So what we have to figure out is, for example, one is the industry, that this is the industry that we should target. That is the first thing we try to figure out, Jim. Okay. And with you coming in, and I also saw at least 10 demos within this year from healthcare companies. So we thought, okay, this might be an industry, right? So that's our first thing, which I believe we have figured out. And now we will try this because we have hired a couple of salespeople as well to do that. The second thing is, who are the right profile? For example, in your case, you were the workforce management team and the operations team. You are the one who is responsible for taking surveys for every team, right? But is it exactly the same that happens in your competition, for example, or any other healthcare company? We don't know that. It might be a different team member, maybe like once you referred me to Chris Nordmark, right?
Right.
So he's in the support side, correct? So that means in healthcare there is a support team as well which take care of this. So we have to figure out, after the industry we have to figure out that who will all these people that we should approach to. That's number two. Then if it's support team, what are the challenges they face in healthcare? If it is workforce management team, what are the challenges they face in healthcare that they are trying to solve through voice of the customer? So once we have figured out all these three things, then it is easier to find people which are a counterpart of you, Jim, or Christopher, for example, in some other healthcare companies, and pitch them that these are the things that we can do for you.
Okay.
You got it? So what we need is the first 2, 3 things from you. and the pain points. If we get that for different teams, then it would be much easier for us to pitch to them. Then the last thing would be how people like you, for example, like a company to approach them. So some people just do calling, some people just do emails, right? Some people do some kind of webinars. So you understand what I'm saying, right?
Oh, I know what
So
you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. So how we
I would
attract
be a
those people?
really bad. I would be a really bad example, man. I mean,
But that's okay.
I get dozens of requests every day from people wanting to talk about, their product, their company, how they can help, and et cetera, et cetera. And I literally ignore every one of them. I don't even read their emails. If it's an unsolicited kind of a thing, I just never read them. I don't answer phone calls unless I know that I'm expecting a call. I'm probably one of the most impenetrable people you'll ever get to, So it was just really by extremely good luck that I was researching, trying to find alternatives to Qualtrics, and found your guys' site. And I read your site and I thought you guys would be perfect.
Right. So the thing is,
saw on your site,
with good luck, the good part was when you were searching, we were there, right?
Yes.
So there are three different type of people, right? One who search and we are there. So we have sorted that part. That's why you were able to get to us. But there are other type of people who maybe answer phone calls or who maybe reply to emails, right? So we have to target all three of them, Jim. So you can think it like that when it comes to the sales and marketing strategy. You got my point?
I think so. I mean, so in the healthcare sector, you often have either some sort of a quality department of some sort, like a compliance department or something like this. Regulatory compliance. There's also oftentimes in hospitals like patient advocacy groups.
Patient advocacy, okay.
Yeah. So if you could reach those individuals, right, they are probably going to be the right people to try to market to.
Okay.
Because patient advocacy is all about trying to make sure that there is a way for the patient to have an advocate for them somewhere in the hospital or the healthcare system. Because sometimes they just get lost in so many different cross-functional areas.
Okay.
But oftentimes what ends up happening, though, is under patient advocacy, is that it's usually a problem or it's a complaint. It's not about trying to be proactive.
Okay.
And understanding what's going wrong or what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. Now there are, I literally have never seen a survey that came from a hospital or from a doctor. Never. I just haven't. I mean, it's very odd, but I just haven't seen them doing it. I do see it, like if I buy a car, I see it all the time, right? And and it's multi-pages and it's mailed, and they're sending you dollars with it. Keep the dollars if you do my survey for me and stuff. It's like, it's crazy, right? So I was actually just talking to my son right before we started talking here, because he just retired from the Air Force also. And he's been in the healthcare industry and all the military service in radiology for 20 years, right? And I was kind of asking him the same thing, kind of reading him off what you were going to be trying to do here and stuff, and what his thoughts were on this. And he really kept on talking about the problems, right? The complaints, the problems, the advocacies that are available, stuff like this. But honestly, the challenges are so individual, it's crazy. When I first got into the DME industry, and this was only like 10 years ago, it was very, very different, because I've worked for Microsoft call centers, I've worked for travel call centers, finance call centers, and et cetera, since I retired the Air Force, right? I've been in a lot of different segments, right? And the one thing that I learned with the DME is that it's very different
Okay.
than any other industry I've ever seen. Even in the healthcare industry, it's very different. Because we've got this layered customer. When I ask a patient their level of satisfaction, we often are not interacting with the patient. We're often interacting only with the referral office. So whoever referred the order to us is who we're really working for. The patient usually is working with the doctor or the place of care, the hospital, the doctor, whatever else. And they say, hey, you need to have respiratory equipment, or you need a PAP machine, or you need this. And then they will make out an RX for that, a prescription for that, and send it over to one of the DME companies.
Okay.
We are just one of many. And so the patient tends not to have, they don't even know who the DME companies are.
Okay.
So they never even get asked. It's up to the doctor's office to decide which of the DME companies. And what we find oftentimes, unless we got a contract with them, is that they will have a list of DME companies in which they choose from, and they will just kind of rotate us. Like, okay, well, we did a PAP with, with Lincare today, so let's do Apria tomorrow, and et cetera, right?
Okay.
And it's a way just to make sure that they never dry up one of their sources for DMEs, right? Now, what we did also understand was that some referrals will get so frustrated with a supplier, a DME company, that they will just take them off the list. We're not going to use them anymore, right? Because of the problems that we either create for the referral, or because the patients give them a lot of really bad feedback. So I was doing patient satisfaction and referral satisfaction surveys. In fact, we're going back to do those. You're going to see that we got one of these up on our site for Survey Sensum up there here soon, where we're going to go back in and do some more referral surveys.
Okay.
But we went through this really big, huge strategic change on how we were organized as a company about 3-4 years ago.
Okay.
And it was such a major shift that we really did see a very big difference in customer satisfaction and referral satisfaction.
In a positive way.
In a positive way, a hugely positive way. And it was really telling to read some of the referral satisfaction surveys, because what we had found out was the referrals were only parroting what the customers were telling them. So if their customers, if their patients were happy with whatever we have done for them to get them set up or whatever else, and they came back and they happened to give them some really good results. I really love that Apria, or we got our PAP and everything was fine and everything was great and all this. We got really good results from the referrals. But if the patient had problems, and then the patient told the referral the problems that they had, then the referrals would parrot, you guys are lousy, you're terrible, you're not doing this for me, blah, 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 right? And it's kind of like, we saw this huge shift in the referral satisfaction that said that you guys are doing fantastic. We love the fact that we're able to talk to you directly instead of having all these faxes coming to us and stuff like this.
So
we're glad to have the local voice to us. We like having someone who's local, who understands our geography and stuff like this, instead of some sort of centralized call center. That was one of our big major strategy shifts, to go decentralized on the phone calls.
So a small question. If you talk about referral surveys and patient surveys, so currently the survey that you are doing are the patient survey, right?
Correct.
Which
Yes.
combines CSAT. And the referral surveys that you will ask the referral, how do patients feel? And how do you feel?
No, it's not about the patient field. So we happen to get that insight, though, by just
from
reading
the patients
all of
directly.
what the referrals had said. When we read all the referrals, before we stopped doing the referral surveys, we were doing it SurveyMonkey at that time.
Okay.
And then this was after our Simplify project, right? It had taken place. We saw this major shift in the sentiment of the feedback from the referrals. Talking about how great they were really loved, their patients are very, very happy with this and all this kind of stuff. And And we also had heard that they really loved the fact that instead of getting 15 faxes telling us that they still need these documents, they get one phone call and they are able to talk to a human being, and it's once and done. And so they don't have all this stack of junk stacking up on them, and there's no human interaction. And so there was a lot of that was going on. And so we were getting very, very few referral feedbacks over a short period of time. And we just thought, well, let's back away right now, because it's COVID time. The industry's very tired. They probably don't even have time to answer any of these surveys and stuff. So we just backed away from doing surveys with referrals.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So now we're looking back at, okay, so we have not surveyed referrals for over a year now, right? And maybe it's time for us to go back and maybe instead of doing this every week, let's do this maybe once a quarter or once every 6 months or something. Get some sort of a feel from our referrals as to how well we're doing.
And what kind of questions you ask them?
So it's more about what they think about us as a DME company for them.
Okay.
How easy it is to work with us in order to get the order, our communication, whether or not they feel like we have a greater clinical knowledge than our competitors that they have. Because we have to talk to them often about regulatory requirements from different payers and stuff. And usually it's like small doctor's offices, they don't often have people who are extremely knowledgeable about all the different billing and requirements in order to get something through.
Okay.
And in the States, it's ungodly complicated when it comes to billing and who your insurer is, what they require for you to get like a piece of DME, durable medical equipment. So we have experts on our team that have to go through this daunting education in order to really understand what all the payers require. We have very, very sophisticated software that helps them do this and stuff. And the billing that happens for everybody, depending upon what kind of insurance they have, as whether they have a deductible, where they have, met certain deductibles and stuff, or they have a copay, if they've got a secondary or tertiary insurance and stuff like this. It's crazy, crazy complicated.
Okay.
And so that alone, just the billing aspect in the healthcare system, and trying to get to the place where what are the requirements of insurance by the doctors and maybe by you as a patient, in order for you to qualify for the insurance company to pay for this.
For the DME, yeah.
Or, well, even for anything really, okay? So it depends on what it is. So sometimes there's no requirements and the insurance just pays it. Sometimes the insurance will pay so much of it, right? If I'm paying cash, so if I see a bill from a hospital, for example, the bill might, let's just say for a couple of days in the hospital, it might be $10,000, right? And that could wipe out someone's, whole life savings and stuff.
Correct.
So if an insurance company is paying them, they might have an agreement between the hospital and the insurance company that they will get a maximum of $1,000 and they have to write off the rest.
Correct.
Right. And then the copay for that insurer might only have to pay, maybe $100 of that. So that the insured pays 100, the insurance paid 1,000, and the hospital ended up getting $1,100 out of the total, right? But if I had not had insurance and I got a cash bill from the hospital, they would have charged me $10,000. But the hospital writes that off. Now sometimes they might say, look, if you're going to pay cash for this, I'll let you off the hook and let you just pay $5,000.
Okay, because they'll make more money.
Even though they bill for $10,000, they know they're not going to get the $10,000 from the insurance company. They write off $9,000 of that then as a tax write-off, say that they didn't get that, even though that's what the charges were. So now the hospitals get to write that off as a tax write-off, or whatever they charge. It doesn't matter.
That's strange. That doesn't happen here.
Because in the $5,000 with cash, they actually got $4,000 more than they would have if you had insurance.
Okay, so the hospitals don't want companies to use insurance, right? Like people to use insurance, because otherwise, like it will be a
No, they
loss, right?
do. No, they actually do, because um, the chances that you're going to get paid are much, much higher if it's
Aha.
coming from an insurance AR than it
Then
is
getting
from
a
a
cash.
personal AR. Now,
Mm-hmm.
our company happens to get the highest percent paid by patient than any other DME company
And
in
why is that?
healthcare. I think it has a lot to do with how we go about our collections, the different options that we do, the timings that we do and stuff, and the explanations that we give constantly, and the digging that we do to make sure that the people who are left are those people who they have been explained, they have been told, they have been given every opportunity for insurance to pay, for them to pay co-pays for months and months and months. It's just a lot of opportunities, before we ever write them off.
Okay.
And we even have some of them, like if they're having problems, financial problems and stuff, there's different things that we offer to them for them to go seek some of this counseling or this help, financial help from some other places in order to get some of their bills paid and stuff. Very small amounts we usually just write off completely, right? Because it's just not worth trying to collect. It's like somebody owes us $5 more on something and we haven't been able to collect it, just write it off and move on, right? Little things like this, right? And so, but that helps to drive up the percentage that we're getting paid. So there's probably a lot of other tricks and stuff that they've been doing for many, many years and stuff that helps with that. A lot of studies around who's the most likely to pay versus those who are not likely to pay, and then the efforts that go into that. Being very, very careful with it. So
Quick question: if I understand the process now, patient has some problem, visits the hospital or visits a smaller clinic or something. That clinic has some kind of this billing and things kind of deal with the insurance company, and also you guys help them with that, how much they are going to get paid, because this is something that you have changed as a process. So the customer will come to the doctor and insurance will pay you guys, right? Does doctor get any cut anywhere of that?
No, it's illegal. No, it's illegal for them to get a cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
So,
and the challenges these yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So, I mean, they would, insurance has to pay for the doctor's visit, right? As well. So they're paying the referral for the doctor's visit for their time and effort and skills for doing that. When they've ordered something then from a DME company, that order goes through. Now for us, we have to qualify that order. So we have what we call CQs, or these are basically qualifiers for every order. So every order that comes through, we take a look at what the doctor's ordered. Some of that stuff might require certain documentation from the doctor's office. So I might need to know, different respiratory sleep studies or something like this, and the results of that, because some payers, some insurers would say that they have to have these conditions in order to be authorized to have a PAP machine for their sleep, problems. And so we have to check all those conditions to see whether or not the doctor had tried to order something in which it did not meet the conditions. And so there might be this back and forth that we, the DME company, have to have with the doctor's office to explain to them what those requirements are, right? And they might have to go back and do something. They might have to go back and restudy, retest, redo this or something like that to double check or something. And this could be a back and forth thing between us and the referral.
And that happens over the call.
Sometimes it happens on a call, right? Sometimes it's a fax, but most often these days it's now by a call, usually from the branch. That depends, because we're set up also a little bit centralized for some of our specialty products, like with non-invasive ventilation and wound care, stuff like this. And so some of those are centralized because they are so specialized. It's a very specialized kind of person who really has to qualify that. And then you've got high acuity patients. You've got the multiple problems that patients might have. And so it really, really depends on all these conditions as to whether they qualify or don't qualify.
Okay.
And so the people who have to try to figure this stuff out, there are qualifiers, there are CQs, and they have to work back and forth on these orders, and then they document all this in the system.
Okay.
And so, in the end, so the problems that our biggest problem always has to do with the billing.
Okay.
Usually we'll get through all the qualification stuff. I know it's a headache and stuff for us to do it, but that's what we're doing for the customer, so that the customer doesn't have to do these things.
Correct.
Otherwise, they would have to. Here's an RX to go get a PAP machine, right? And then they would hand it to a PAP machine place, and the PAP machine place would say, okay, for us to do this, we're going to need you to get this and this and this from your doctor, and then it's going to have to pass all these conditions, and who's your insurer, and all this, and it's like, oh crap, it's just
So
way
you
too much.
solved this for the customer already, but
Yeah,
you do this with the
customers
doctor.
usually have no clue about all this stuff that goes on in the background. All they know is that they pay an insurance premium and they expect the insurance to pay for their medical.
Pay for them. Okay, got it. And so this is the qualification thing that is solved, and now.
Yeah, but the problem though is,
go ahead.
but the problem though that we all run into is that everybody is billing the insurance company. So if you think about this, let's say you've got a problem and you got a couple of doctors you're going to. You go to your regular doctor, then you go to see a specialist or something for some kidney issue or whatever. So now you've got the regular doctor who bills it. You got the kidney doctor who's billing it. Then you might go in and get a surgery. And now you've got the hospital bill that's going to be billing your insurance company. And then when you're done, you might need to get some wound care. And so they call the DME company in order to order that.
Okay.
And now we've got more qualifications. So you think about it, everybody's billing the insurance company here, right? But the patient has both a copay, or they could have deductibles. So in other words, they have to pay so much of this up into a certain amount. And then once they hit that max amount, then the insurance company will start kicking in more.
Okay.
The problem is that how soon are all those bills hitting that deductible for that patient? It doesn't always hit all at the same time. And so some referrals will hold off even billing, because if as a business, if you know that if I were to bill the insurance company, I am likely to get paid, have higher likelihood of getting paid than if I have to bill the patient and wait for them to come up with the $2,000, right? I will hold off until later in the year, right? Until they've probably hit their deductible. They've already hit their max deductible. And now when I put my bill in, the insurance company is likely to pay me, not the patient.
Okay.
So that's what ends up happening. So now when me as a DME company, and I'm trying to tell the patient that they're responsible for this payment. Now, we understand you got insurance. We understand you're supposed to have your insurance paying up to a certain amount after certain deductibles, but we have no way of knowing where you're at on your deductibles. Only the insurance company knows that. And we also don't know how many other bills are being withheld from other referrals that might suddenly slide in there. So I might say that, you know what, based upon everything you've told me, right, that you should only have to maybe pay $20 a month for this rental, right? But if all these other referrals are not putting in their bills, you might have to pay $100 a month, right? And so that's the uncertainty when I'm talking to you as a patient in the DME world, because none of us can tell where somebody is on their deductibles.
Okay.
None
And
of us can. No
deductibles are, for example, if I understand that correctly, you are insured for $10,000. You are going to 4 different places.
No, you're insured. You're insured for everything, right? You have a certain.
It's unlimited, or is it a limit?
Unlimited. It's pretty much unlimited, right? But the problem is that they say that if for the first 8,000, it might be might have an $8,000 deductible, which means you have to pay more for all these visits and doctors' offices until you've hit your $8,000 deductible, and then your insurance will kick in and actually start paying more.
Okay, got it.
So like I might have to pay $1,000 a day for a bed at a hospital until I've hit $8,000. And once I've done that, I only have to kick in maybe $50 or something like that every day. And the insurance will pay the rest because I hit my $8,000 deductible.
Okay.
But it has to be, it's not just that one instance, it's all the instances, whether it be doctors' visits, hospitals and RXs,
Everywhere.
everything else that they paid for, or you've had to pay for, right? If it met the requirements, they just basically add up how much have you paid in deductibles, and then they start to pay out more.
Okay. So you get, so that's for this instance, you get that $20 a month more than getting from the insurance company. So where you guys get paid more, from the patients directly by this $20 a month thing, or through insurance companies?
No, insurance companies is definitely the most.
Okay, but this is an option that you give to the patient.
No, it's not an option. There is no option. It's not an option. That's why I say it's all in stone with every single insurance company, and there's thousands of them.
Okay.
And depending upon what policy you have, that adds 10,000s more, right? Because every insurance company has a different level of policy, types of policies, employers have different policies, et cetera. I tell you, man, you go down into the American healthcare industry and you're going to go down a rabbit hole. They said that the billing is so complex. They said that you can go get your master's or your PhD in billing for healthcare, and you can spend an entire career doing nothing but billing and still only hit a segment of the billing.
Seriously, because see, the kind of stuff that you have talked to me, some of them were actually going through here. So I'll actually read about it after your, so I'll re-listen to the recording and read about some of those.
Yeah, it is crazy stuff here. So that's what's so frustrating from our patients. And this is stuff that we feel like a lot of this is uncontrollable by us, but we have certain things that we still try to do.
Okay.
We try to make sure that we try to explain how that healthcare billing works for them, with DME. We do that up front before we send them the equipment. We usually try to get credit cards on file, and we do all these steps in order to try our best to make sure they're as well informed as we can possibly inform them. But a month goes by and stuff, and then they get their PAP, then they get their first bill, and all of a sudden they're paying 100 and not the 20, and they're mad at us, right? And it's kind of like, we don't know another way to explain it to you. We've given you videos, we've explained it to you, we've tried our best, but because the billing is so complex and there's so many players in it, it is literally impossible to give somebody a true final answer before they get this. And I think that's what a lot of people are very frustrated. A lot of customers, patients are frustrated in our healthcare industry, is that there's no transparency in the billing. And they're starting to do more and more of transparent billing, transparency among like hospitals and stuff like this. Some states are starting to put requirements in so that it becomes law that you have to show people what it's going to cost them before you do something. And you have to give them enough time to make those decisions and stuff.
Correct.
So that way they can shop around if they want to. And that's the whole purpose of competition, being able to shop around.
Correct.
Try to make the healthcare industry a little bit more like that.
Correct.
But there's so many lobbyists and they're so strong, that it probably will never happen truly. But it's a good effort anyway, right?
I think in India it's a lot easier. Way a lot easier than this. Like what you are telling, we can shop around.
It's a lot easier everywhere else. That's all there is to it.
Okay. So tell me, sorry, go ahead.
No, I didn't.
Okay. So one question on this, like you told me the problem is mostly with the billing, and that is what customers complain about as well. Now, when you are using voice of the customer, the combined CSAT survey, right? So how it is helping you guys? In what ways? In what kind of pain points you got to know which you were able to fix, Jim? Maybe in the last 4 years.
I'm gonna unfortunately say that the billing side has not been able to help much at all.
Okay.
We've separated the area of Apria that I'm over versus others. I'm not over the billing side, and we've split the company there. So on the billing side, we have given them all the information, but we have systemic issues, not only the issues of the healthcare industry of billing, but even ourselves. We have some issues that would cost us multi-millions of dollars to fix.
To fix it.
And so it's one of these things where can you live with, a reduction of 10% of satisfaction versus a capital investment of $100 million, right?
Okay.
And so it's kind of like, well, that's a pretty hard sell, to increase your satisfaction of customers when the whole industry is suffering on billing.
No,
right?
makes sense. So the other thing is like, in what kind of like if the billing is separated, what are the kind of things that you handle where for which that combined CSAT is getting used?
I think oftentimes it has to do with how easy is it for a customer to do business with us. We're trying to understand the things that we're doing that don't make it easy. A lot of things that we do with our deliveries too, trying to understand all those deliveries that we do. We use so many different delivery methods. We're trying to keep our costs down as much as possible, but also some things just require that we have somebody there to help set up or train somebody. So we're always trying to find out what's the best what's the best solution there. So getting that feedback and trying to help understand that as to whether something's not working well or something. I think the most that I've seen, the biggest thing was a few years back again, before we did the major strategy change. We had a really large QA department. And we used to do the transactional QAs just like anybody else would, with sampling and stuff like this. And, and my team was able to, get to an improvement that was a little bit above 90%, maybe 92, 93% quality in our quality results. The satisfaction rates were probably sitting up around that high 70s. We were touching the 80 percentiles on the 4 top 2 box and stuff like this on satisfaction. And the last year that we were doing this, we only got like a 1 to 2% improvement versus the other years. So like the first 5 or 6 years that I was doing it, we'd gotten a good 12% improvement overall. And so we were getting some real good improvements in all the different teams and stuff. But that last year was kind of like a dead year. It was like, okay, so I think we ran up against process capabilities. So it came, we were starting to have some serious talks about what else could we do, because we can't QA, we can't evaluate quality into this, right? You can only help people so much with their training or something like this if they're having some problems there. And we could use the feedback to help improve some of the processes as they were going. But there's a limitation as to what the capability of that whole process, all of our systems and processes and software has on the overall quality and the satisfaction of the customer, right? So they were just stopping us. And, one of the things I told them, I said, look, my team can't do any more. I mean, I've got 65 people here doing QA across the country. And I said, we only got like a 1%, 1.5% improvement over the entire year. I said, I can't justify my team any longer. I said, if I tried to do something next, if you were to ask me what's next, I would say, I'd say we have to do something with our software, because our software is limiting what we can do to improve. And I said, second, the best I think that this big team could do would be to do process capability studies and assessments on all the processes to understand what's the capability of the process, and not just try to build more quality into it. And so that's whenever they had this big powwow and stuff. And that's when the company decided, we're going to take centralization out of this, and we're going to move the communication between Apria and the customer, both the patient and the referral, to the local area, down to the local branch. And that way, all the geography and what the branches actually do, right? They're always doing the delivery, they're doing the respiratory training and stuff like this, is let them talk to that local branch and have the local branch talk to them, because they know that hospital. It's the same person they're going to be talking to all the time from the local branch. And you can fix problems a lot faster with the local person than you can with a centralized person.
Central call center.
You could go through 1,000 people before you get a repeat person,
Right.
So along with that, they went with a new GUI that they put over the top of our software. That instead, because this is old like 1980s green screen,
Legacy
1970s green
systems.
screen stuff that we have.
Okay.
And so they put a GUI system over the top of that with bots also included. So instead of having to go through a million screens trying to get all the information that an agent might need when they're talking to a referral or a customer,
Right. Right.
it brought it all to the forefront so that one page had all the information they would need for whatever job they were doing, right? Which was tremendous improvements in speed and
Saves
accuracy
time.
of all the information that they needed
Right.
at the time they were talking to a customer. And so customers then started to realize that people did know what they were talking about. We did have the information finally. And then they were also talking to local people. So then that also helped them with geographically. Yeah, I know where you're talking about,
Got it.
where you live and everything else. Or I even know the culture in which you live and stuff. And so those made some major, major improvements there. And so I think that that's one of the things that we had learned from all of our instances.
Okay.
I think that when you start talking about going down different healthcare sectors in America, God, it is so unique no matter where you go here. It's the most complex thing for you to try to dive into. It truly, truly is.
Okay, got it. So if I have to say to them, yeah, go ahead.
You got into one of the most difficult. DME is one of the most difficult. There's nobody else who has to go through the qualifications like a DME company. Nobody else has to, like we do, and have to be that middleman who's constantly being pulled and pushed between the customer and the referral. And the customers don't even know who we are until they get a bill from us, right? Then they suddenly know who we are. You know.
Okay, so in terms of VOC, right? In the last 4 years, the voice of the customer that you were running, these surveys, did this led you to push them to change the processes that saves time, the GUI? How was VOC involved? No,
I don't think so, honestly, because unfortunately, the voice of the customer was a long, it was like a 20-question survey that they used to send out through Press Ganey, via snail mail, right? So it was always mail, and they would always give them about a year to get back to them with the results.
Okay, so there's no point.
When I came in 10 years ago, they had already had this thing developed like 10 years before, 10 or 12 years before. So they had never changed the questionnaire or their process for over 20 years, almost 20 years. And some of the questions that they were asking on the old survey is referring to stuff that we no longer even did. But yet we were still getting feedback from the customers on how well we did that step. And it's kind of like, how are they giving us feedback on that? We don't even do it, right?
Yeah.
And so it just brought in the question about what are people even thinking that this means, right? And can you really trust these things? And if I'm going to give somebody a year to give me a survey back, and if I get it back at 8 months, how many interactions have I had with them? You know, if this was going to be tied to a single interaction when I sent this thing out, and then I've had 5 or 6 more interactions throughout the year, and then suddenly they want to give me a feedback because one interaction was bad. And they were angry enough to give me a feedback. What did that mean on the other 4 or 5 interactions that were really good? You know? And so I finally convinced them that we really need to do a little bit closer to real time kind of survey and stuff. Only keep that thing open for a couple of weeks, get their instant feedback. Now that's all transactional. I get it, right? This is all about the transactions, not about the relationship. But that's where we're kind of hoping with the referrals that we're going to really be talking more to the relationship stuff, like if we do surveys like every quarter, 6 months or year. That's going to be more about relational that we're going to get back. We've also talked a little bit about doing just some NPS questions, just out to our customers, had nothing to do with a transaction. It just might be a once a quarter, once every 6 months again.
You should do that.
With just one NPS question to understand from a relationship standpoint, does the NPS score go up or go down, right?
Correct.
What's that long-term effect that the relationship is having on them?
Right.
And understand the difference between those that was a one-time transaction versus those that are recurring, who might be renting stuff and billing constantly, or they're the recurring resupply, because there's some product lines that require that we resupply them with, you know, more filters, masks and stuff for like the PAP or need to get more prescriptions for different, nebulizers or stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
So there'd be like 3 very distinct groups there and stuff we want to understand. But I think that in general, the 3 most basic questions that we ask that we're always looking at is the overall satisfaction, just that overall feeling of satisfaction from the transaction, the NPS score, and how easy it was to work with us. Those are the 3 that drive everything else.
Right.
Well, that's the easy. Now they're not the most actionable ones, though, right? That gives us the best overall view, but the most actionable ones has to do with some of these other things. Like we might ask, how well did the mask fit for their PAP? If they were a PAP patient, how well did your mask fit? If it was a delivery, sometimes we've sent training materials into a drop ship delivery, and we want to know how well that training materials were for them. How easy was it for you to learn this stuff? Do you understand all that stuff? Was it good, or was it like, I really still need somebody to train me, I want to know how complete and accurate the order was for them. How many times did you have to re-engage us because something was not right? We sent you the wrong mask. It's supposed to be a smaller and you got a large one, or vice versa. These are very specific things that we tend to know that they don't always go well for everybody, and that we want to see, are we doing better, right? We always know we're going to have problems, always. We just want to know if we're going to be doing better.
Better than last time, maybe. So if you had to say 2 things, absolutely 2 things that you remember, which helped you either save cost or increase satisfaction or anything, can you give us 2 examples? Because that is something which will help me when I pitch to some other DME companies, that this is how we worked with Apria, for example. These may be the pain points that we received, and this is how we improved. Maybe you did this 2 years ago. That's also okay. Do you think of anything specific which helped from those surveys?
Honestly, I can't say that there was anything. I really hate to tell you that, but I struggle with a culture of a lean healthcare system these days.
Okay.
Where they get so much feedback that they often don't have the resources to do anything with the feedback.
Okay, got your point.
It's really, and so I've been trying to find some ways to segment the data, and some of them, so like the certain BPs, like in our sleep center, right? They are actually taking the feedback, but they're looking very, very specifically at one question about the complete and accurate orders. And there's a question in there that asks them if they said that they did not get a complete and accurate order. It follows up and asks them whether or not whether it has been corrected since. And if they still say no, then we ask them for more feedback. What is still wrong with your order, right? Now she takes those feedbacks and she actually has her team do a follow-up on every single one of those.
Okay.
So it does help there, where it's actually helping us to where people still, it's not very easy to get a hold of us all the time, right? So if they do give us the feedback in that, we're actually calling them back in order to try to get that solved for them.
Okay.
I'm sure that's helping them on ease of doing business with us stuff, but it's still a problem area. It's not really something that you're saying that it's being used for some sort of long-term solution.
It's short term. Got it.
Yeah, I have the same problem with the complaint management process, right? We get tons of complaints that come through, and we've got a ton of data, and we're trying to manage all of that stuff at the same time. But what we tend to find out is there's enough, and I hate to say it like this, but it's always like enough time for us to fix a problem with a customer, but there's never enough time for us to look at the full trend and try to fix
the bigger picture,
the systemic problem that even caused the problem in the first place.
Okay.
And that's what we're up against right now. And me and a couple other VPs, we're trying to work through that to try to understand, how do we get through this dichotomy of resources, that you don't have enough resources. You barely have enough resources to solve the problems as they recur, let alone the additional resources that you need in order to do some true root cause, Kaizen, whatever you want to call it, deep diving on all these complaints to find out where the common threads of problems are so that we can solve those. And with such complex orders, that's where you get into, you almost have to have like a forensics team on you, to help
To find
dig
out
into
the
those
root
well
cause.
enough to do the root cause. So
Okay, got it. And you have you thought about trying it on a single team, any single team, like maybe hiring a project manager or something like this, which focuses on this, who's from the DME
yes,
industry?
yes.
Okay.
And they looked at like our top problem that we identified for around order processing and stuff. And there were so many of them that they got overwhelmed, and so they could only take a sampling of them. And the samples are so small because they also have another day job. So that's not just their only focus.
Okay,
Right?
so we need
so-
focused people for this. That's what you're saying. If we have to fix
Yes.
it.
And anytime you
Yeah.
do that, then all of a sudden, drives up cost, and now you can't do it because everybody's trying to stay lean. So it's a real dichotomy of what you put your money where your mouth is, but this is a growing industry, constantly growing industry, and so usually the capital money is going for the growth initiatives and not the improvement initiatives.
Right. No,
Now,
that
it's not
always
always
happens
true.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not always true. I mean, there's a lot of improvement things that are going on, like with software improvements and things like this, that you're going to start seeing some improvements, in this section and that section and stuff. But it's going to be one of these things. I can't really directly tie it though to that it came out of the satisfaction results that you got. It's a tough thing in all the industries these days
No, makes
for
sense.
them to try to figure out, what am I going to do with the data that I get back, and who's going to do it? How easy is it for me to do that forensic digging when it comes to problem solving and stuff? It's a real problem that we're trying to get through right now.
And you have done segmentation, Jim, already, like in the
Oh,
terms
yeah.
of segmentation, who are the right people that you want to sell to, and these are the
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of people we have to fix problems with already. Yeah.
As much as we could. The problem is that once you start to segment the data too much, then all of a sudden you got way too high levels of margins of error. So then you're not really too sure decision making then, or your confidence in margins of error. And I go back and I say, well, I can figure out more of the significance if I can understand how many starts we had. Because in other words, what's the population? This is all about transactional. So if I had the population, let's just say of O2 orders, right? Oxygen orders. If I knew exactly how many oxygen orders that went out this month, I could compare that to how many oxygen surveys I got returned. And then I could do a level of confidence on that, right? I can do my confidence in margins of errors. But they hold too tight to the vest how many orders we actually
They don't
have.
share this with you.
They don't share it with anybody. That's highly classified in our company. And so, especially then, if I start to give you margins of error, you could actually back into that and find out how many orders we had. So it's very, very cautious about it. The funny thing is that it's always been that way, right? That the Prescani that we were using, they used to put on there the margins of errors for almost everything, every single question that they had and stuff. And I wanted to go back to them. This was after we had let them go, but I wanted to go back to them. I wanted to say, how did you come up with margins of errors if you had no idea what the population was?
That was a guesswork.
Yeah, and none of the salespeople knew anything about the stats and everything like this. They kind of repeat whatever that's been said to them, and they do their best to try to talk through it with their client management stuff. But I've told them many, many times about the different confidence levels we've had, margins of errors, and if they start to cut this stuff down too much, you're going to get too wide of a margin of error, and then it's really anecdotal. It's not something that you should be, spending hundreds of millions of capital on, right?
Correct.
Not with that kind of margin of error. So yeah, we've done lots of segmentation and stuff. We used to do it a lot with Microsoft back in the day and stuff. So I got very, very used to it back then. So
so tell me one thing. Let's suppose now, because I understand the pain points and the follow-ups. I don't know how much time you have. Sorry, Jim.
Well, we should probably end it here soon. So
okay. So when you are totally done, you let me know, because I think we'll have to do another call, maybe whenever you are available next. So one question, for example, if we are going somewhere and maybe they are using SurveyMonkey, right? Because you have used both SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics both. So if we go against SurveyMonkey, what would you say about us? Bad and good both. That might help us.
No, I think the thing about downloading, once you get that automated downloading so that we can use our Power BI automatically,
Right.
that is going to be so much more of your key thing. To me, that's going to sell it. To me, that's going to sell it more than anything.
Okay.
Because everybody wants to sell their platform, like even Qualtrics, they want to sell their platform online for all their metrics and stuff like this. It's kind of like, well, I still have to build stuff within your set of tools, right? But yet I've got my own set of tools. I got tons of Power BI experts, right? And we do tons in Power BI, and there's so much you can do in that. You know, you can even export it down to your own Excel files and everything else if you'd like to, and et cetera. So it gives you this hugely robust capability to do analysis and to have this consistency of reporting. And I can build out as many darn pages as I want with the Power BI. It's like we have special Power BI tabs on pages for each of the care managers who are actually have all these clients that they have to go, you know, with Kaiser or not Kaiser, because we're not using Kaiser with you guys. But with like Humana or with certain hospital systems or something like this, those people will go out and they just basically take a picture of our tab because we built them specifically for just their hospital systems and stuff. And they can find out exactly how well we're doing with those in a second. They don't have to do anything more, and they can download that and they can start to play with it. So that is massively, to me, that's one of the biggest things in the entire industry that I've seen is the ability to automatically upload, automatically download, which most do not have. I've not found anybody yet who's already had an automated download solution.
Qualtrics did not have it?
Qualtrics didn't even have it either. Not automatic download. It was you'd have to go through this special process with them. But also, I think SurveyMonkey, they ended up doing something for some sort of automation, but I think it was a one-off. It's not like it's an offering, okay? But I think that there's this other side of the business that the survey companies tend not to value as much as what we value the capability of doing. And so like you and I have talked about before, to have like a PAP resupply form put up in the sense of a survey, right? And to be able to do that, to put up a form to somebody in their email and just say, hey, if you want to order something, click here and here, here, and here, and then send it back to us. That is massive because it's
That's actually a pain point. Yeah.
It's a self-help. You know, the whole industry needs more self-help, right? And to have not only the survey capability, but then to use the platform itself for a lot of self-help things, that's hugely the big.
And nobody focuses on that. If I talk
nobody
about survey
that I know
companies,
of focuses on that. You know, it's kind of like, what do you do on a transactional basis? Like if I have to do dialer, everything that I do with a dialer, I can do with an email, right? And people tend to want to talk with you these days, if you will, more through their emails than they do through anything else. Even text, right, will go forgotten unless they answer it right away. So you can get quick response in text, but it can also be forgotten pretty quickly too. You may not get the response rate. So I think we get higher response rates through our email. And it gives people time to think too. They can keep coming back to it or whatever else. Or they can put it off to the side and they can use that reorder form later on if they want to, if you just leave the survey wide open, right? And so I think that the ability to do stuff like that with forms for self-help, it'd be tremendously huge. And you know, I've got a lot of projects for us to do on that. Once we
when you want to talk about it, see, this will be done in November first week, right? Maximum by second week. So
so once we have the automation done for the downloads and stuff, that's going to be massively a huge improvement for us, because now it says, now the only thing we got to do is to have those discussions with you guys on how do we get a database of data up to you. It's not the survey data, it's not the stuff like you have there, but it's going to be filling in these forms, right? Or maybe an API connection of some sort. You know, that you guys can interact with as the form opens and stuff like this, so that you can get real-time data and you're not trying to hold, over 1 million or 2 million records sitting on a database somewhere, right?
Right. No, I get your
Trying
point.
to interact with
I
that.
think we'll talk about it. So if you talk about the first part, which is the automation till download responses.
Yeah.
If you were me, how would you pitch it to a company which is similar to you, for example?
So
maybe they're using SurveyMonkey or Qualtrics. How many hours I might be saving by doing this?
I don't think that I actually don't even think that they're even thinking about it. I think a lot of companies are not even thinking about how they could use SurveyMonkey or anybody else with the forms building online, in the sense that I'm talking about it. I think they all think of SurveyMonkey and Qualtrics or whatever else as the survey company.
Correct.
Right? For survey satisfaction and stuff like this, not a self-help. It's not this, they don't think about it as a self-help. And I'm just wondering if there is something there for you guys to also consider as part of a marketing strategy is, we're not just a survey company, we're also a self-help company of some sort. And then to talk to them about ways that you can interact with customers to get orders, resupply orders, transactions and stuff like this, that doesn't require you to make phone calls or robocalls, in some way.
Saving phone calls.
And
that's going to save a lot of money as well, and also a lot of time for the customers. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's turnaround time too, because once somebody orders something, once it downloads for the day, it immediately goes into my qualifiers and they start working the qualifications right away. Some things have already been qualified and it's already just a resupply and it's back out the next day. Versus if I do it through a phone call, like with our dialer and stuff, it takes another day for all that stuff to come back to us and stuff. Then it takes another day for it to process into our systems. And so there's a lot more cost to the dialer having to for every minute on the phone and stuff like this.
Correct.
Plus the response rates are not that great these days because nobody wants a phone
wants
call.
to pick a phone.
Nobody wants to answer up, right? And then we're constantly getting hit as being marked as a spam through the public software.
I get your point. I get your point.
You got to go through Newstar and try to get it whitelisted again and stuff. It's very, very expensive doing that kind of stuff. And I think that everybody in the healthcare industry is always looking for more self-serve kind of things instead of people having to talk. Now you get to the older generation, they would want to talk to somebody instead.
Correct.
Right. But everybody else wants just give me something I can just do it myself and send it off because I got 10 other tasks I got to do, right? Give me a fast way of doing it. I can do it. Just give me a way of doing it and then I can move on.
Correct. So, okay. So this one is something we are going to talk more about, and maybe from January, I'll start pitching it to the other ones once we have set it up for you. And if I talk about only surveys, you would say the automation till download responses is one of the best things that we would do, which is kind of like a pain point. And what is a pain point that you would say? Is it time? Is it effort? What are the things that I can use? Because this will be helping my marketing materials.
Yeah, I would say it's probably time and effort and trying to remember that we have to do it. Like if whenever it was manual, you have to always make sure that the person who's going to be doing this for you is always there. Right. And if he's not there, do you have a backup? And then everybody has to know how to do that. They all have to have an account to do it. And then the time that it sometimes takes. And then, as you know, sometimes you run into problems, just because something's happened in the last week, and you don't know that AWS changed this or did that or whatever, and you have to download it. Then you have to upload it into their SQLs after that, et cetera. So everything it's like this massive step of things that you have to do manually. So you can spend half the day doing this kind of stuff. If it goes smoothly, okay, maybe you've only spent an hour, but if not, you can spend half a day trying to troubleshoot, trying to figure out what's going wrong, trying to download it again, or something's holding it up from downloading all the way or something like this. And then you're trying to, unless you've got a really, really good routine, you're not too sure, did the last guy, did they download Saturday or did they download it from Sunday? Stuff like this. It's all these questions that happen, and did they do it, after they had a full day, or did they pull down the 18th in the middle of the 18th,
Right.
All these questions that happen. So when it's downloaded automatically, it's kind of like, well, what's the rule for the downloading? Then you just look at the rule, and now you know what you're seeing, right? Okay.
So it gets simpler. So, and when you, last question, Jim, others I'll ask later. So when you were thinking about moving from Qualtrics to us, right? Was it just the investment that came into picture, that they were not bringing enough value for the investment that they were taking? Or was there something else as well when you decided to search for it?
So during our negotiations,
Hmm.
when we were trying to go for the unlimited,
Correct.
they misstepped really badly with me. And they were going to give us unlimited for a certain price. And they were talking about doing that. And then they started holding up. So the year prior to us doing this, they had told us, because we were saying, well, we don't know what the return rates are going to look like. We
Correct.
don't know how we wanted to throttle these things, because they had said that they could throttle the samplings and stuff, and they couldn't after we were on there. And so so we had to build in all kinds of stuff in order to throttle how much we were sending out, in order to keep from getting overcharged and stuff.
Correct.
And they said, well, we don't want you to throttle and stuff. And they were perfectly happy with us just going for a little while. Let's just see how it goes and stuff. Let's see how much you can do and all this. At the end of the year, though, and we kept on asking, should we start throttling now and everything? They kept saying, no, don't worry about it. Well, then when it came to renegotiation for the pricing and stuff, they said, well, you're going to owe us another $50,000
for the previous year.
Yeah, for the previous year, because you went over. It's like, well, wait a minute. You guys kept telling us not to worry about that, and we kept asking. And they never would respond to that. Right. And the one of the ladies who was there, who was one of the top ones, she had actually left to become a CEO at another company. So she wasn't even there to help, back us up on that ethical vocal.
Okay, got it.
You don't have to do this, and et cetera. And so while they were trying to negotiate that, they were basically put us in a place that we're going to have to pay them this massive amount of dollars for the future contracts, or we're going to leverage you and force you to pay another $50,000 or whatever it's going to cost you for going over. And we had no proof other than what the contracts had said. And then they started playing some games about what the contract said, and they started saying that the contract says that if you go up by, I don't know, it's like 10 or 20. If you go up to the next level or tier, that you have to, this is what it would cost you. But they're trying to tell us then that if you go up that tier, you have to continue that tier level or better for the rest of the contract. And it's kind of like, that's not even in the contract. Where are you coming up with this, right? And they just keep on saying that that's just the way it's got to be. And it's like, you guys they're terrible to work with as a business. And I don't feel like that they're very, their integrity suffers at the level that is working with us. Let's say it that way. And they went from a company that was really about the voice of the customer, and to help with benchmarking or anything like this, or to help us in so many different ways, to a company that's out after transactional dollars.
Okay.
That's just the way it went. They just started going after transactional dollars, and all of a sudden everything's about that. But as we started asking them for help in different areas and stuff, they brought on people, but the people that they brought on, I mean, they didn't even come near being a true consultant. And it would be like, I could probably tell you already what they're going to say when you ask them a question, because they're just repeating whatever's in the latest Google, if you will, of the responses. And it just got to be that place where they can't really help, right? They can't really help. They have a good platform, right? They got a good platform for building surveys, and they got a pretty decent reporting platform online and stuff like that. But they still have problems, right? They still have problems. And you can ask them stuff about that's even contractual, when we start talking about, is it the number of surveys you sent, or the number of surveys that was received, and whether they were partially received or whether they're full received and stuff like this. And they can't give you a straight answer. Now, we could ask 5 different people, they'll give us 5 different answers on what the volume is. And they're using 5 different sources on their own system. And no one over there knows which one is supposed to be the valid one for the contract.
Okay.
It's kind of a mess, if you will. And
No,
I think it's
get your point.
whenever they got bought out. Who was it that bought them out?
SAP,
SAP,
SAP.
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that's whenever we all started to recognize that they went to this hugely that they changed their tone, and that's whenever again that Patty left them and went over to somewhere else as a CEO somewhere else, and she was the smartest on that team. And everybody started to leave, and they started to move. If we had a problem with their account manager, they started to move that account manager away from us and give us a new account manager who never told us about these. You guys could keep doing that. And that account manager, they would have to try to fight the other account manager. It just got to be a mess. So I tell you, it's been extremely refreshing to work with you guys, right? Everything that you guys said you could do, you've been doing it. I know it's been a little bit slower than what we had expected and stuff when we first came on board and stuff, but you're doing it. You're getting past these things, these challenges and stuff, and you're making it happen and stuff. You guys are always a delight to work with. You're always right on it whenever we had a problem with support. We needed it, and you guys were there. You're there ready to offer us any kind of expertise that we might ask for. At the same time, you're also willing to just leave us alone if it's just not time yet. Right. And it's not about trying to do something for us when we're not ready for something yet,
Right.
So your willingness to be able to say yes, but here's the things we're going to need to do. I love to always hear the yes, right? I don't like to hear the no. I like the ease of getting to the yes with an understanding that I know that there'll be a qualifying paraphrase after that, yeah, we're going to need either more resources, or it might cost a little bit here to do that, or might take us a little time to do that. I like that. That's a great way of doing business. So I told you before, today, I love the trust and transparency and stuff that you guys bring to the table. That's
okay. So that's so good to hear. Like you just gave us goosebumps. and the good part is recorded, so we'll let our team hear it.
Actually, yes, we should hear it. They are after all working so hard on everything. They should hear this.
Yeah, they're an amazing team. I got to tell you, I don't think I've ever heard a discouraging word from anybody here yet who's ever worked with your team so far.
So that's so nice to hear.
Congratulations.
And thanks a lot. One last thing on this. When you were talking about changing Qualtrics, were you the only person, Jim, involved who was frustrated with this contract thing? Now, why I'm asking this, or the CFO, or anyone also involved thinking about that, okay, this investment, maybe, I don't know, we were 30, 40, 50% or around the same price. I have no idea. You'll have to tell me this now.
There was a lot of discussions. Yes, the CEO even knew about it and stuff at the time. And so because Press Ganey had been a long-term thing, and there's a lot of contracts that we have that requires us to report on customer satisfaction and stuff. And so it was a very careful thing that we were doing when we were doing this. We were trying to combine them all into a single survey and stuff like this. So there was a lot of work that had gone up front because it was going to be a combined survey that was going to go over to Qualtrics. And so we were kind of prepared to go with that at the end of the year last year. And I was ready to pull the trigger, on the 1st of January to switch it all over. And on the 31st is whenever they started playing all those games with me. And we just said, this ain't going to happen. You're in the 11th hour, and all of a sudden you're changing everything that you told us, and you're trying to leverage us at the last minute. This is bad business, and I cannot have a vendor doing bad business. I just can't do that.
So you decided that totally.
Well, I went to my bosses and I told them what I thought. And so my boss also passed that along to the CEO and the CFO and things that we were going to be doing. And so we went through all of that, and I told them that I had found another company, and I talked about you guys, and we'd gone to the demo and stuff. And I said, I think we can get these guys up really, really fast. They say they can come here to the USA, they can make all the data only in the USA, and that they would have a replicate platform over here that they already have over in Asia. And I said, yeah, and their price is significantly lower than the competition.
And
they all looked around it. They said, really? They can do it for that? And, you know, and et cetera. So certainly price was a massive value, right?
Okay.
But the fact that you guys were also close to Qualtrics and the ease of your platform to building out questions and surveys, similar to being able to upload stuff and to put reminders out, and some of the platform features and stuff were very similar to the competition, you know.
Okay.
It just made it easy for us to manage our own surveys, right? And to change our own surveys and then report out on those surveys and stuff. That's tremendous, because once you have to involve IT, it's a slow process. I mean, we already have few resources, but even IT resources are even smaller available in our industry than anybody else, just because they're just hard to find and they're very, very expensive. So the fact that we don't have to use IT resources for this at all is tremendous. And so we can be a lot more agile in how we do our surveys. So
so with Qualtrics, you had to use IT or no?
No, we didn't have to use them.
So it's similar. Okay.
I mean, there's a point where you'd use IT because they have the basic data extract that they have to start with, right?
Okay.
For all the transactions, you know, they have to be able to parse those out and et cetera. And then they start off with this one extract, but then we have some more parsing to do ourselves and filtering and stuff like this before we put them on up. So, but IT reporting is a little different than getting IT involved with anything else.
Makes sense. Right? Yeah.
And so the fact that we just got the trades that basically uploads things or manages the SFTP sites for up and down and stuff like this, and then us to be able to do some automation with the service management, that's a tremendous work for us, because we can do all that stuff, and so we can do it immediately as soon as it's there. There's nothing that stops us, and people are amazed at how agile we are. Anytime somebody wants a survey, we tell them, yeah, we can have it up and running for you in about an hour if you want. They're like, what? You know, and you're like, yeah, probably in an hour. If you can answer all these questions here, you know, what questions you want, answers and stuff. I said, I can put a draft out for you in about 15 minutes if you want. And they're just like, you're kidding me. And it's like, no, that's what Survey Simpson. So they've all become fans of Survey Simpson. Everybody in the company that has been able to do all this stuff and has seen how fast we can build these surveys and get the reports, results, and stuff like this. And they're passing along to them. And I mean, each person keeps on passing along to each other, you know, about what their capability is and how fast things can go. So it's pretty amazing. I got to tell you that. But yeah, pricing was certainly a very big selling point.
Yeah,
and the fact that we got this thing up by the 1st of April, that was amazing to everybody. You know, to be able to vet a new vendor, have that vendor come into the US for the first time and pass all the security and get up and running the 1st of April. So all within 3 months. You know, I don't even know if it was 3 months, right? It was probably a little less than that because of the time.
Yeah, we started in March, I think.
Do the research and find you guys. So for all that to happen in 3 months and then pull the trigger, you know, at the end of March, the beginning of April, to get started, that was just like, it blew everybody away. They said, I can't believe that they were able to do that. It's just crazy, you know. And then all the IT security, they said, yeah, they passed everything. Everything is fine. So that was really, really amazing, that the speed, and they've never seen anybody do it so fast before. It's still a story that is told in some circles, you know, that every once in a while it's like, yeah, we brought survey. Can you believe we got these up in 3 months, you know? And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty amazing. Have a contract.
But it's because of you guys as well, not just
it was very, very fast. Yeah. So I think that kind of showed the agility that you guys had, right? And the dedication you had, the commitment to try to get this thing to work right and stuff, and just make it all happen. And it really worked out well.
Okay. I think that answers most of it. So if I have to approach someone in healthcare, so you told me the patient advocacy, you told me workforce management, quality, compliance is someone I should approach. And if I talk about the budget thing, so the CFO also needs to know, right? If I ask you a question, whether we were 60 or 70% cheaper than Qualtrics, would you say yes?
I can't tell you that.
No, I'm not asking you this. If I have to use that number, so don't think about this, because I'll never. You trust us now that I'll never increase or anything, do anything like that, Jim. Whatever happens, it will be ever, whenever 2 years later, it will be 10-15%, because that is something that is going to cost us, right? Because I'll have to pay more salaries, more to the cloud, something like this. But it will never happen with you again that I change from unlimited responses to anything else and blah blah blah. So don't worry about it. So just tell me, because this is something that will help me, directly help me. Tell me a number that I can use.
I'll tell you what, let me get with my legal team first.
Oh, okay. That's okay.
Because,
That's okay.
you know, we have certain agreements.
That's okay.
To not let others know. And so I want to pass something by legal first to ask them.
That's okay. That's
if
okay.
there's any risk in us talking a certain way about pricing of competitors.
Okay.
And what's not only what technically we're allowed to say, but also I am very much I try to be a highly ethical person, and I know you guys do too.
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that from an ethical standpoint too, that we're also not technically saying something okay, but ethically that we're also, if we do talk about it, you know, what's an ethical way of talking about it. So
that's okay.
I just want us all to be careful.
Makes sense. So Jim, tell me, when are you going to get involved with those clients where you are still using Qualtrics?
Well, I think we are considering using you guys for that. The problem is that the one client, that's Kaiser, right? That's using Qualtrics. They love Qualtrics. And they've got everybody who's a client of theirs using Qualtrics. It's kind of like a single system that they've kind of asked all their vendors to go use. They're not asking us to use, they actually said, hey, we really would like to see you guys use this platform, but we want you to go look at it and decide for yourselves and stuff like this. Well, we looked at it, we loved it and stuff. And the beginning of using that was a very, very good relationship and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it went sour though over time. So because of that, even though they've got a good platform and stuff, that soured relationship is not helping them any. You know, we would gladly be leaving them if Kaiser would say, you guys, you know, don't need to stay on Qualtrics. But they tend to use, they try to use some of their own, you know, the different like DME companies are all on that same platform then, and all this kind of stuff. So the fact that they're all on the same platform, then they get benchmarks and stuff like this, and they can kind of compare each other to the same stuff. So from a Kaiser standpoint, they're so big, right? That there's some things that they just control, and you're just not going to change them, right? So if you had anything to show them, Kaiser themselves, as an alternative, and you know, show them some of your pricing and stuff along with that, you know. Now they tend to also want to use their consultative kind of stuff. Now you know Qualtrics, they've got a lot of stuff built up out there,
right?
You know, a lot of self-help files and a lot of studies and stuff like this. So I think you are going up against like a behemoth of resources that they've had for many years, right? Because they started off in the universities, being a research platform and stuff. So, but I don't think that they have a lot of those people left. I think now what they have is a lot of people who are chasing transactional dollars. You know, so they've turned into like another survey company that didn't keep their expertise.
Okay, got it. Okay, so we'll think about it, how we can approach them maybe later.
Yeah, if you could get to the Kaiser and make your offering better for Kaiser than what Qualtrics is doing, right? That would be a huge contract for you there. That would be a monster, honest to God. I mean, if you ever did decide to break
to US for that,
I think if you ever broke that into that side of the things, I think that you'd probably want to get a couple of the DME companies under your belt and stuff like this, or a couple other healthcare companies, and let them know who you're using. You know, that these companies use you, right? and
like Aprilia does. So some other DME companies, right?
Yes, yes. And so it's almost like too, if we could find that we're actually doing better in our voice of the customer through you guys than we are through Qualtrics, that would be a pretty good selling point too. You know,
Right.
but they want to know, well, how are you guys doing better with
This automation and then
versus
PAP
Qualtrics?
supply, for example, these two
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got your point. Okay. So let's we'll talk about it more after our calls. I've taken enough of your time today.
Okay. All right, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jim, for
You're
all the
welcome.
answers.
Nice to meet you, Manisha. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Manisha ji.